President Trump is set to sign new executive orders this afternoon. Now, details on what exactly the orders are about have not been released, but CBS News has confirmed the president is working on an order in the days ahead that would dismantle the Department of Education. Just a day after the president temporarily paused his 25% tariffs on some Mexican and Canadian imports for the next month, he's now threatening to impose new reciprocal tariffs on our neighbor to the north if they don't ease their taxes on American goods.
They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it. And that's what reciprocal means. And we may do it as early as today, or we'll wait till Monday or Tuesday. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to charge the same thing. It's not fair. Never has been fair. And they've treated our farmers badly. Look, our country's been ripped off by everybody, and that stops now.
In addition to Canada, the president is threatening additional sanctions on Russia in an effort to bring the war with Ukraine to an end. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump said in part, quote, "I am strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions, and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement agreement on peace is reached," end quote. Despite market uncertainty regarding tariffs, the Trump administration is praising the release of the first jobs numbers of the president's second term in office. Last month, the U.S. added 151,000 new jobs, which falls slightly below experts' predictions. Joining us now is CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang. Weijia, good to see you. President Trump says Canada could be hit with reciprocal tariffs as soon as today. What more do we know? Is this the first batch of Canadian tariffs against a certain number, billions of dollars in U.S. goods?
So it's hard to keep track, I know, because we are talking about tariffs all the time. But you'll remember earlier this week, U.S. Tariffs went into place on Canadian and Mexican goods. And at the time, Canada responded right away with retaliatory tariffs. Since then, we have seen more development. We've seen a 1-month exemption for Canadian and Mexican goods that are compliant under the USMCA trade agreement. We've also seen a 1-month exemption for automakers. So what Trump is talking about now is retaliating for the response that Canada already gave. So you had the original tariffs, you had the Canadian response. Now this is the U.S. response to that, specifically on Canadian lumber and dairy. And so to answer your question, Lindsay, it is a sign that the president is following through with what he has always said, which is, you know, if you put something on us, we're going to have a reciprocal tariff. Now, this is not to be confused with the global reciprocal tariffs that are coming on April 2nd for all countries that currently impose a fee on American exports. That will also include Canada, Mexico, China, but way beyond that, Lindsay, many other countries. And even though Trump has received some criticism and pushback, not only from American companies, but from American consumers who want to know what this means for their bottom line, he is all in. He was directly asked today how much of a disturbance this could cause the average American and for how long. Can you give a dollar figure of any kind? And he did not answer specifics, but again defended his plan to continue using tariffs, he says, to bring manufacturing roaring back to the U.S., Lindsay. But it should be noted that that, of course, takes time. It could take years. And in the meantime, there could be some real impact on American consumers.
It is a twisted web of tariffs. Thank you for spelling that out for us and helping us follow along. So what would these Russian sanctions look like? And does the president have plans right now to get both sides to the table?
He says that he is still working on a peace deal. In fact, he said today, almost in the same sentence, Lindsay, that's notable, he said that, you know, Russia is bombing the hell out of Ukraine, but he went on to say that he believes Vladimir Putin really wants peace. He actually added that it's Ukraine that's more difficult, he said, quite frankly, to work with right now on a peace deal than Russia. All that said, he does still believe that he will be able to negotiate something in the end, but he has also sent a warning shot to Russia to say that, look, we have more options on the table when it comes to sanctions, whether that's Russian oil, whether that's other Russian banks that are currently not being sanctioned, or even sanctioning China for doing business with Russia. Those are potential options that the White House says Trump is not going to hesitate to use if necessary.
Let's talk crypto. President Trump is set to host a summit on cryptocurrency this afternoon. He signed an executive order to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve on Thursday. What does that mean, and what is the goal of this summit?
So the bottom line of this summit, Lindsay, is to essentially welcome these tech titans to the White House to reset the relationship between especially crypto CEOs and the U.S. government. These leaders claim that it was very difficult to work with the Biden administration on regulation, on sort of what the role of the U.S. government would be. And so that is why Trump has invited them here today to talk about these two new actions that he has taken through executive order. So as an example for the digital reserves, if the U.S. government were to seize assets that are in digital form, now there's somewhere to put them. But I think more, Lindsay, it's really an outreach to essentially thank a lot of these guys who poured a lot into his reelection campaign. And it shows that Trump is trying to carry through on his campaign promise of making the U.S. the crypto capital of the world. But we should also note, Lindsay, that according to various studies, just about 17 to 28%, somewhere in there, depending on what research study you're looking at. That's how many Americans currently have investments into crypto. So it's certainly not the majority of the country that this impacts. And David Sachs, who is in charge of this effort, along with artificial intelligence, insists that these moves through the executive order are not going to cost taxpayers any extra money.
Weijia Jiang, thank you.